My name is John Brenan. I am the Director of Appraisal Issues with the Appraisal Foundation. The Appraisal Foundation is congressionally authorized to establish standards and qualifications for appraisers in the United States. We also have an Appraisal Practices Board that issues voluntary guidance to appraisers on issues related to recognized methods and techniques in the valuation arena. The Appraisal Foundation has entered into a 5-year memorandum of understanding with the Department of Energy. As part of that MOU, the Appraisal Foundation has agreed and is looking into providing guidance on the valuation of green buildings, both residential and commercial green buildings. That we believe that the guidance is sorely needed by many appraisers who are not familiar with green buildings, are not familiar with the various aspects and components of green buildings. So we think it's something that's sorely needed in the profession today. On DOE's part, they are developing databases that we are going to be able to utilize in terms of identifying certain energy efficient items and their costs, as well as sales and transactions and possibly leases as well of green buildings and their corresponding values, so that appraisers can utilize that data, which is absolutely critical to be able to properly recognize that in an appraisal that's performed. Most difficult things, in addition to finding adequate data to substantiate green buildings, is the fact that there are many appraisers who are quite unfamiliar with the entire process. They're unfamiliar with what green buildings are all about. We have, as a result, what we are trying to do is be able to quantify those things by, number one, issuing guidance related to background and core competency of green buildings. And that is essentially who are the players, what are the terms, what are the things that we need to know as far as valuing these buildings. And then we will be following up in early next year with components related to specifically the valuation of residential green buildings, followed by the valuation of commercial green buildings. We are able to, with the databases that I referred to earlier, along with other sources, quantify many of these things and be able to translate them into value and more accurately represent what the market value for a particular property may be. One area that's hard to quantify is that of social good. Many of us know that there is a benefit in terms of green buildings, green energy, and those things. But the problem is quantifying it is very difficult. For example, a building owner that says, my income stream from this office building would be $100,000 a year in a quote-unquote standard building, and on the other hand, my income stream in a green building would be $115,000 a year. With the savings of utilities and such. The question is, are they willing to pay the difference for the $15,000 a year in income? Are they willing to pay more than that because it's a benefit to society and because they want to be able to work towards a better environment? Or are they simply looking at the dollars and cents? That is something that's difficult to quantify, but it also goes into the demand for these properties, because there is a whole nother level we see coming down the road with municipalities and other agencies that will require a certain level of energy efficiency to be able to lease buildings and possibly even to sell buildings. And appraisers look at what they're valuing, and they may see a building that doesn't have any special energy efficiency items and say, well, this doesn't apply. Well, in fact, it does apply, because if there is a demand only for green buildings, that really can drive down the demand for the other types of buildings. And so appraisers have to be cognizant of what's going on in the area of green buildings. Also, combined with that, the whatever good from society that we can actually try to quantify and recognize that in appraisals of all buildings.